Welcome to Cozy English with Jannie. Let's relax and learn English together.
Have you ever noticed how entirely different the world feels at night? It's almost as if all the noise of the day, the heavy expectations we carry, the constant breathless rushing, it all just slowly dissolves into the dark, and we're left with just ourselves, just the quiet. Welcome back to Jannie's Little Corner. You're listening to Cozy English with Jannie, episode 2. If you were with us last week when we talked about dreams, detours, and finding the courage to keep going, thank you for coming back to our little room. Pull up your chair closer to the fire, wrap yourself in your favorite blanket, and just take a deep breath with me. Tonight, the rain is quite heavy outside, and sitting across from me again is my dear friend Killian. Killian, look at you. You've brought another massive stack of finance books tonight, and is that 3 empty coffee cups on your side of the table already?
Busted. Yeah, sorry about the mess, Jannie. I tend to surround myself with a fortress of mugs when my mind is running too fast. And tonight, listening to the rain out there while staring at the steam rising from this fresh cup, it just makes me feel incredibly honest.
I think the rain always forces you into your philosophical zone, Killian. But I like your messy fortress. It belongs here.
It does feel like our safe space now. But you know, Jannie, as I was driving through the rain to get here tonight, dodging those deep puddles on the dark streets, I couldn't stop replaying a conversation I had a few days ago. It left this heavy, familiar knot in my chest. Have you ever sat in a room with everything to say, your mind absolutely bursting with ideas, and still gone home completely silent?
Oh, that hits so close to home, Killian. That exact silence. I think anyone who has ever tried to navigate a career, a relationship, or just survival in a second language knows that specific weight. It's that invisible, suffocating wall between who you truly are on the inside, your witty, deep, capable self, and the smaller, fragile shadow you're forced to be in English.
Exactly. You feel like an imposter, like you're shrinking yourself just to blend into the background. And tonight, since we're among friends, I thought we could just pull back the curtain on that silence. Not as a textbook lesson, and definitely not as teachers, but just as two human beings who know exactly how much it hurts to hide your own mind.
I love that. And to the beautiful soul listening to our voices right now, whether you're walking under a wet umbrella, folding laundry in a quiet kitchen, or just lying in bed staring at the dark ceiling, welcome back. You don't have to perform tonight. You are completely safe here in our quiet room. You know, Killian, talking about this heavy silence brings back a very specific, vivid memory for me. It was about 3 years ago. I was working as a junior project consultant for an international firm here. Every single quarter, we had this massive regional strategy meeting. I remember the corporate room so clearly. Blinding white fluorescent lights, a long glass table that felt freezing when you rested your arms on it, and about 12 senior managers from the global offices sitting around it, speaking effortless, high-speed English.
White lights and glass tables. Sounds like the absolute opposite of our cozy room.
It felt like a high-stakes courtroom, Killian. During this particular meeting, they were discussing a critical flaw in our market launch timeline. And the thing is, I knew exactly how to fix it. I had analyzed the localized data the night before. I had the entire solution painted so clearly in my mind. But the moment I thought about opening my mouth, my heart started hammering against my ribs. My throat went completely dry.
Did you try to raise your hand, or did you just wait?
I adjusted my cuffs, I held my pen tightly, but I just sat there. In our culture, Killian, we grow up with this deep, instinctive need to preserve social harmony. You don't interrupt, you don't risk making the room uncomfortable. And my internal critic used that cultural mindset as an excuse to terrorize me. A frantic translation loop started in my head. If you speak and use the wrong past tense, they will lose respect for you. What if your accent makes them lean forward and ask you to repeat yourself? You will slow down the entire meeting. You will be a burden to their time.
Were you angry at yourself while it was happening?
I was paralyzed by shame. I just faked a polite smile, nodded whenever the senior manager looked my way, and spent the next 45 minutes pretending to read the label on my water bottle over and over again. Just staring at the ingredients list like it was the most fascinating thing in the world, just to look busy. My hidden thought was so dark, Killian. I thought, you are invisible here, Jannie. Your real intelligence is locked behind a cage, and these native speakers will only ever see the quiet, passive girl who has nothing to contribute.
Did you tell anyone after the meeting ended?
No, I couldn't. I went straight to the disabled bathroom stall on the 4th floor, locked the heavy door, leaned against the mirror, and just stared at my hands shaking. I felt like such an imposter, and the worst part was, 2 weeks later, my manager assigned me to join a 4-day regional customer trip with our top foreign clients. 4 days in a shared van, 4 days of dinners, site visits, casual chats, and Killian, I stayed entirely silent through the whole trip.
The whole trip? 4 days is a very long time to be a ghost, Jannie.
It was an emotional nightmare. Every time a client turned to me in the van and asked something simple like, "So, Jannie, what's your favorite local spot around here?" my brain would short circuit. I would edit, translate, and second guess every syllable until the silence became awkward. Then I'd just choke out, "Oh, everything is very nice," and I would immediately check my phone without any reason, scrolling through blank screens just to pretend I had an urgent message to read. I felt so small. My reflection during those long, silent highway rides was just a continuous loop of self-doubt. I realized I was actively erasing my own presence in my professional world because I valued a flawless textbook sentence more than my own human value.
And when you look back at that van ride now, what's the actual takeaway?
The takeaway is that people don't respect perfect prepositions, Killian. They respect presence. They respect the story you are trying to share. When I chose silence just to save face and protect myself from making a grammatical mistake, I wasn't being respectful to the team. I was just letting my fear dictate my worth.
Your corporate story, it resonates so deeply with me, Jannie, it almost hurts. Because, as you know, my entire life outside of this room revolves around global finance and macroeconomics. It's what I studied for years. In our native language, when I'm talking to local colleagues, I feel articulate. I can debate investment cycles, liquidity crises, and market volatility for hours without a single doubt. I feel like an adult, a capable, intelligent adult.
You are brilliant at it, Killian. I've seen you talk about numbers with so much fire in your eyes.
Well, the fire goes out real quick when the language switches, Jannie. About 6 months ago, I discovered this major international finance community online. They host weekly global live streams where analysts from London, New York, and Singapore jump on the audio stage to debate emerging market trends. One Thursday night, I was sitting at my incredibly messy desk. I had about 12 browser tabs open, charts everywhere, and a cold cup of coffee I'd forgotten to finish. They started discussing an economic shift in Southeast Asia. And Jannie, they were getting the core data completely wrong. They were missing the local context.
Really? Did you know the exact piece they were missing?
I had the actual data sheet open on my screen right in front of me. I knew exactly why their predictions would fail. My heart started thumping so hard I could feel it pulsing in my ears. I hovered my thumb over the button that said, "Request to speak." I forced myself to click it. 2 minutes later, a notification popped up on my screen. The host said, "All right, let's bring Killian up to the stage. Killian, you have the floor. What are your thoughts on the local liquidity?"
Oh my goodness. What did you do, Killian?
I froze, Jannie. I stared at that flashing microphone icon on my phone, and my hands turned ice cold. My throat constricted like I was swallowing dry sand. This toxic, familiar voice of the internal critic took over my mind. If you speak with your thick accent, these global analysts will think you're an uneducated amateur. You'll use the wrong financial term, you'll mispronounce liquidity, and you'll sound incredibly stupid next to these native speakers. Just stay down. Save face. My hidden thought was that because my English wasn't polished or fast, my years of economic expertise were completely worthless. I was a child compared to them.
Did you tell the host your microphone was broken, or did you just leave?
I completely panicked, Jannie. I closed the app, turned off my phone, and threw it face down onto my messy bed. I sat there in the dark room for a whole hour, staring at my open financial charts, listening to the rain, feeling this immense, suffocating wave of intellectual humiliation. I felt like a prisoner, locked inside my own skull. I had the knowledge, I had the passion, but the fear of an imperfect sentence had stripped me of my dignity. I felt like a complete fool.
Were you angry at yourself for throwing the phone?
I replayed that exact moment in my head for weeks, Jannie. Every single night before I went to sleep, I would think, why didn't you just say one sentence? But reflecting on that dark room now, I realized the conflict wasn't my English. The conflict was my pride. I was treating my temporary linguistic struggle as a permanent reflection of my intelligence. I was hiding my mind because I couldn't bear the thought of not looking perfect.
So, how did you break through that? What was the takeaway?
The takeaway came a month later, when I forced myself back onto a smaller live audio call. When the host called my name, I didn't try to sound like a Wall Street executive. I looked at my hands, took a deep breath, and said very slowly, "My English is simple, so please bear with me. But the data from my market shows a different story." I stumbled over 3 words. I completely forgot the technical term for hyperinflation and literally had to say, when the money becomes like paper and prices go up too fast.
And did anyone laugh at you?
No one laughed, Jannie. The entire room went completely quiet. They listened to the actual figures I was sharing. When I finished, a senior analyst from London said, "That is an incredible insight, Killian. Thank you for that context." That was the night the fortress of my shame collapsed. I realized that the world doesn't need your elegant prepositions, Jannie. The world needs your authentic thoughts.
The world needs your authentic thoughts. Killian, if you told me those words 3 years ago when I was crying in that disabled bathroom stall, I wouldn't have believed you. But sitting here tonight, I look back at that invisible girl and I realize how far I've come.
You really have changed a lot, Jannie. I've noticed it at work recently. You don't hide anymore.
I don't, Killian, and it feels incredibly freeing. Lately, whether it's a high-pressure face-to-face offline meeting with senior partners or a chaotic online conference call, I speak up. In fact, just yesterday, I had an online presentation with our European clients. The audio connection was terrible. There was static noise, background echo, and people were interrupting each other. The line was so scratchy and loud, but instead of letting the noise paralyze me like before, I adjusted my headset, leaned into the mic, and confidently stated my perspective on the project delays. Offline or online, smooth or messy, I just say what needs to be said now.
That is incredible, Jannie. Honestly, I'm still struggling with that step. How did you actually bridge that massive gap between crying on the bathroom floor to owning the room? What was your secret formula?
There is no secret formula, Killian. Just a complete shift in my mindset. I had to learn the art of not being afraid to make mistakes. For years, we were trained to think that mistakes are fatal. But here is the brutal truth that changed everything for me. If you choose silence to avoid making a mistake, no one can ever discover your errors. And if no one discovers your errors, you will never, ever have the chance to improve.
Wow. If you don't speak, your mistakes stay hidden, and so does your growth. That makes so much sense. By protecting my ego from a bad sentence, I was actually locking myself in a perpetual linguistic prison.
Exactly. You have to expose your broken English to the world so it can heal. I forced myself into the uncomfortable zone of constant daily communication. Every single day, I initiated casual chats with my foreign colleagues. I volunteered for client presentations. I chose the messy road. And you know what happened over time? Through that relentless, raw interaction, my listening skills naturally sharpened. I stopped translating in my head. My accent became much smoother, more fluid, simply because my vocal muscles got used to the shapes of the words. And most importantly, my deep-rooted confidence grew.
But Jannie, didn't you worry about your vocabulary or grammar being too simple? I always feel like I lack the sophisticated words to match my finance thoughts.
Let me tell you a secret, Killian. Look at me right now. To this day, I still lack complex vocabulary in certain areas. My grammar is far from textbook perfect. I still use the wrong tense occasionally, and I still stumble when describing complicated legal frameworks. I absolutely still need to study to expand my word bank and to refine my structures. I am still a student. But guess what?
What?
My foreign colleagues and my global clients understand almost 100% of what I intend to say. They get the core message. They don't care that I didn't use an advanced idiom or a flawless conditional sentence. They care about the value of my data, the warmth of my delivery, and the reality of my solution. Perfect grammar can cover a hollow mind, but an authentic mind can easily transcend broken grammar.
An authentic mind can transcend broken grammar. Jannie, you have no idea how much I needed to hear that tonight. I've been staring at these massive finance textbooks, trying to memorize academic words, thinking that was the key to my confidence. But the key is just showing up and letting my thoughts be messy.
So, less hiding behind your fortress of coffee cups, Mr. Financial Expert? Next time on your global live stream, you click that microphone icon and you speak. Let them hear your local data, even if you have to explain it with the vocabulary of a child. Promise me?
I promise, Jannie. I'll let my sentences break. But you know, Jannie, even as we talk about this beautiful progress, it's important to remind ourselves, and the person listening to us, that the inner critic doesn't just disappear overnight. The civil war inside our own minds can still trigger old habits.
Oh, you are so incredibly right, Killian. It's a daily practice. That harsh, unyielding voice that sits comfortably on your shoulder doesn't just vanish. You just learn to talk back to it.
Yes, the inner judge who never sleeps. For a very long time in my life, I carried that red pen with me everywhere I went. I was editing my thoughts before they could even reach my lips because of my educational background back home. Mistakes were always highlighted with a thick red pen. Success was defined by 0 errors.
It sounds incredibly lonely, being both the creative writer and the strict examiner at the exact same time.
It paralyzes your soul, Jannie. There was a dark phase where I actively avoided any kind of social interaction at my workplace. If my international colleagues invited me for a casual drink on a Friday evening, I would immediately construct an elaborate excuse. Oh, I have a terrible headache, or I have an urgent call with my family across the world. But the absolute raw truth was, I was just completely terrified of the mental exhaustion of keeping up with the fast-moving, unpredictable river of native conversation. I felt like a drowning man trying to pretend he was just swimming.
I understand that isolation so deeply, Killian. People look at someone who stays silent and assume they are just shy or introverted, but they don't see the invisible warfare. We stay silent to protect whatever fragile piece of self-esteem we have left. Because every single time you open your mouth, stumble over a word, and see someone look at you with slight confusion, it feels like a tiny, bleeding fracture in your identity.
A tiny fracture. Yes. You feel yourself breaking into pieces.
And for me, the conflict had another, deeper layer. It was our cultural mindset, the crushing fear of being a burden to others. We are taught to value social harmony above all else, to not take up too much space. So whenever I found myself in a group of fluent English speakers, my brain would say, "Jannie, look at them. They are laughing so easily. If you speak, you will slow the entire group down. They will have to stop and spend their precious energy trying to decipher your accent. You will ruin the beautiful mood of the room."
So, to protect their comfort, you chose to make yourself disappear.
I chose my own painful isolation over the mere risk of being a nuisance to them. I wore this mask. I would smile when they smiled, laugh when everyone else laughed. But mentally, I was miles away, wrapped in a cold, suffocating blanket of absolute loneliness. I even looked up plane tickets one night after that client trip. I sat on my floor with my laptop glowing in the dark, crying, thinking that my life abroad was a beautiful mistake.
I understand. It makes you feel like such a deep hypocrite. You have these beautiful, expansive dreams. You want an international career. You want to make global friends. But you shrink back into the shadows at the very first sign of linguistic discomfort.
I think if I look beneath all the layers of this conflict, the root problem is that we treat English like a final exam we have to pass with a perfect score, rather than a beautiful bridge we get to cross to meet another human soul.
If we change our perspective, silence can actually become a space of profound awareness. After that painful evening where I threw my phone away, I started going to public cafes and busy train stations, and I just started listening to how native English speakers actually talk to one another in everyday life. Not the perfectly polished dialogue in textbooks, but real human speech.
And what did you discover when you stripped away the illusion?
Jannie, I discovered that their everyday speech is incredibly, beautifully messy. They break their own grammar rules constantly. They stop abruptly in the middle of sentences because they lose their train of thought. They forget words all the time. They stare blankly at the ceiling and say, "Oh, what's that word again? It's on the tip of my tongue."
It's so true. We treat them like walking dictionaries, forgetting they are fully human too.
It felt like a massive weight was lifted off my chest. I was punishing myself, holding my soul to an impossible standard that even the people born into the language could never actually meet. And that brought me to the realization I had while watching an elderly local man trying to give directions to a young foreign tourist, using only broken words and wild hand gestures, when they completely misunderstood each other. There was this intense, vibrant, joyful energy passing between them, and it hit me. The ultimate goal of language is connection, not performance.
Connection, not performance. When you truly realize deep in your bones that the person standing in front of you isn't a strict judge waiting to grade your fluency, but just another fragile human being looking for a moment of shared understanding, the fear simply evaporates.
It changes the entire chemistry of your interactions. You stop focusing on yourself and your insecurities, and you start focusing entirely on the other person.
Yes, and that realization allowed me to practice the healing power of radical vulnerability. Remember that dinner party with our foreign clients I told you about? When a man asked a deeply complex question about our culture, instead of freezing or giving a boring, safe answer, I looked him in the eyes, smiled, and honestly said, "You know, I have so many deep thoughts about this topic because it matters to me. But my English brain is feeling incredibly tired tonight. Please bear with me if my sentences break or if I have to use my hands to find the words."
That takes an immense amount of courage, Jannie. Did he look uncomfortable?
The entire atmosphere at that dinner table instantly softened Killian. He smiled, leaned in, and said, "Take all the time you need, Jannie. I don't care about the perfect words. I just truly want to hear your perspective." By dropping the heavy mask of perfection, I allowed him to see my authentic self. Our cracks are not our failures. Mistakes are just the natural, necessary friction of human growth. They are the beautiful proof that you are brave enough to show up in a world that is unfamiliar to you.
It really is like learning to play a beautiful instrument. You have to be willing to play 1,000 wrong notes before you can find the true melody of your voice. Those wrong notes are the path to your fluency.
As we sit here together in the quiet warmth of this evening, listening to the rain fall softly against the glass, we want to bring you, yes, you, listening to us right now, directly into this conversation with us. This podcast has never been just about our stories. It is about the beautiful invisible tapestry that we are all weaving together.
You know, Jannie. It's funny, but in our earlier segment, I almost used an old name from a past script I was reading. It just goes to show that even here, in this cozy room, we are human. We stumble, we carry old memories, and that is completely okay. We are all imperfect works in progress.
Exactly, Killian. We really are. So, to our lovely friend listening to us tonight, we want to give you a dedicated, quiet space to look inward. Let these questions drift gently through your mind. Think back to this past week, to your interactions at work, at school, or online. Can you remember a specific moment when you had an idea, a joke, a compliment, or a deep opinion that you wanted to share, but you chose to swallow your words and stay silent instead? What was the exact fear that stopped you? Was it the fear of your grammar? Was it your accent? Or was it that old, heavy worry that you would take up too much space? Identify that fear. Give it a name in your heart. Because once a fear has a name, it begins to lose its power over you.
And my question for you tonight is, if your English learning journey had a physical form, what would it look like right now? Does it look like a cold classroom with a strict teacher holding a sharp red pen waiting to punish your mistakes? If it does, can we work together to slowly reshape that image? Can we choose to turn your journey into a quiet, late-night room like this one? A cozy corner where mistakes are completely allowed, where long pauses are welcome, and where your voice is deeply valued simply because it belongs to you.
Just think about that for a little while. And if you feel brave enough tonight, leave a comment for us. Tell us about your unspoken words. We read every single word you write to us, and we are here to hold a safe, loving space for your journey, always. You are never, ever alone in this corner.
This has been a truly beautiful, healing evening for me, Jannie. Hearing about how you stepped into your confidence, offline and online, and how you embraced your mistakes to improve your listening and your fluency. It gives me a roadmap. Thank you for inviting me out of the cold rain and into your cozy room tonight.
Oh, Killian, thank you for bringing your calm, philosophical, and deeply thoughtful light into this space. I truly hope from the bottom of my heart that this is just the first of many quiet conversations we get to share here.
I would absolutely love that, Jannie. And to every single soul who stayed with us until the very end of this quiet hour, thank you so much for your precious time and your deep trust in us.
As you gently close this episode tonight, carry this one truth with you. Your voice matters. Not because it is flawless, not because it is elegant, but simply because it carries your unique story, your unique heart, and your completely irreplaceable perspective on this world. Release the fear of a broken sentence.
Be incredibly kind to your own progress. Real human growth doesn't happen in giant, heroic leaps. It happens in the quiet, unseen, everyday moments when you choose to take a breath, let go of the red pen, and try one more time.
Keep speaking, keep connecting, and always stay cozy. Good night, my dear friends. Until next time, take care of your hearts.